Hey there, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about a strategy that is honestly a total game changer for your classroom: visual anchors. If you've ever felt like a broken record, just repeating yourself over and over, this one's for you. And let's just start with a feeling I am sure you know all too well.
If you've ever repeated the same instruction and still watched students ask, "What are we doing?" I mean, seriously, who hasn't been there? This quote just hits the nail on the head. It's that moment of pure frustration that can really grind you down. But what if the problem isn't that our students aren't listening? What if it's the environment we're asking them to listen in?
And that right there is what we can call the reminder machine problem. You know the drill. You give an instruction, you repeat the instruction, you repeat it again for the kids in the back, and then you spend the next 10 minutes individually explaining it to half the class. It is exhausting. And as it turns out, it's just not the most effective way to run things.
So here's the big idea. The real issue here isn't defiance or kids not paying attention. It's about something called cognitive load. Just think of it like mental bandwidth. Your students are constantly juggling your verbal instructions, all the social cues in the room, and the demands of the actual task. Their bandwidth just gets totally maxed out. And when that happens, there's just no room left for learning or, regulating their own behavior.
Okay, so how do we fix this? How do we free up some of that mental bandwidth? Well, the answer lies in this really simple but powerful idea: visual anchors. So let's break down what they are and, just as importantly, what they are not.
And this is a super important distinction. On one side, you have visual anchors as working tools. These are simple, stable, predictable visuals that do a job. They actually offload the thinking from the student's brain onto the wall. On the other side, you've got what they are not, just pretty decorations. Those busy, Pinterest-perfect walls that, let's be honest, students learn to ignore after about a day. We want tools, not wallpaper.
So if we had to put a pin in it, here's the definition we're working with. A visual anchor is a stable, predictable visual that helps students answer common classroom questions without having to ask you. The key words there are stable and predictable. It's something they can count on day in and day out to get the information they need without needing to interrupt you.
And what kinds of questions are we talking about? Oh, just the big ones. The questions that can totally derail a lesson. What am I supposed to be doing? What happens next? What do I do when I'm done? Instead of a student's hand shooting up, they can just glance at the wall. This builds so much independence, and this is huge. It protects your time to actually teach.
Now you might be thinking, okay, this sounds nice, but is it just another classroom hack? Nope. There is real, solid cognitive science that explains exactly why this strategy is so effective. So let's get into the why behind their power.
First up, as we've said, they reduce that cognitive load. When you make expectations external, meaning they live on a chart on the wall instead of just floating in the air after you've said them, you free up a student's mental RAM. That freed up brain space can then be used for the important stuff, like thinking critically, solving problems, and managing their own behavior.
Second, they support developing executive functions. All that brain work like planning, starting a task, managing your time. These are skills that are still very much under construction in our students' brains. Heck, they're under construction until our mid-20s. Visuals make abstract ideas like process and time totally concrete. And this isn't about lowering your standards, it's about building the scaffold so your students can actually reach them.
And third, and this is a big one, they lower stress. For the human brain, uncertainty is inherently stressful. When a student doesn't know what's happening or what's expected of them, their nervous system can flip into a fight, flight, or freeze response. Predictable visuals create a sense of psychological safety. They tell the brain, hey, you know what's going on here, you're safe. And a calm brain is a learning brain. It's really that simple.
All right, enough with the theory. We know the why. Now for the really fun part, the how. Let's look at some super high-impact, low-effort anchors you could literally make and start using in your classroom tomorrow.
Okay, if you only do one thing after this, make it this one. This is the What Are We Doing board. It's just 3 simple sections that you update every day. This thing is an absolute lifesaver. For the student who comes in late, check the board. For the one who is daydreaming, check the board. For your early finisher, check the board. It answers the biggest questions before they even have a chance to ask them.
And that's really just the tip of the iceberg. You can create visual expectations actually showing students what a voice level 1 looks and sounds like. You could post step-by-step instructions for complicated assignments. You can use visual timers for transitions. Or you could even have charts that support emotional regulation. The possibilities are pretty much endless.
And hey, Don't for a second think this is just a little kid thing. This principle scales up perfectly. For elementary kids, sure, it's picture-based routines and emotion charts. But in middle school, it might be checklists for a lab report or anchor charts for writing thesis statements. And in high school, it evolves into process guides for research papers or annotated examples of A-plus work. It's the same concept, just in a different package.
Okay, so you're probably fired up and ready to go. But wait, before you break out the laminator and go crazy, let's just slow down for 1 second. We need to cover the single most important rule and the #1 mistake that people make when they get excited about this idea.
The biggest mistake is letting your amazing, helpful, beautifully crafted anchors become wallpaper. It's so easy to do. When every single surface in the room is covered with posters and charts and information, the brain just gets overwhelmed. It's too much cognitive noise. And the brain's defense mechanism is to just tune it all out. Your crucial working tool becomes invisible. So the golden rule is this: less is always more.
And please, remember this. An anchor is a routine. You have to teach it, just like you teach any other routine in your classroom. You can't just stick it on the wall and hope for magic. You have to explain it. Hey everyone, this chart is here to help us remember our 3 steps for turning in work. You have to model it, physically walk over and point to it. You practice with them. And then, and this is the absolute key, you have to refer to it constantly. Every time a student asks a question that the anchor can answer, your response becomes, "That's a great question. Where in the room can we look to find that answer?"
So let's make this really practical for you, right now. I want you to just take a second and think. What is the one question you feel like you answer a dozen, maybe 50 times a day? Is it, what do I do when I'm done? Is it, can I go to the bathroom? Is it, how do I spell because? Just pinpoint that single, most repeated question.
Got one? Whatever that question was that just popped into your head, that's it. That's your starting point. That is the pain point that is just screaming for a visual solution. Don't try to wallpaper your entire classroom overnight. Just solve that one recurring problem. Sketch out a simple chart on a piece of paper that answers that one question. And that's it. That's your first anchor.
And that really brings us to the final takeaway here. Strong classroom management isn't about being stricter or having a louder voice. It's about being an environmental engineer. It's about creating a clearer, more predictable, and safer space where students can actually thrive and regulate themselves. Visual anchors aren't a replacement for building great relationships. They're a tool that protects your time and energy so you can build those relationships. So what's that one question you could answer visually tomorrow?